as we invite our other companies back up onto the stage, Green2Go, Glue, Trigger Mesh, Protopia, and of course, already on the stage, BrewView. Now for the next 15 minutes or so, our judges will have the opportunity to ask questions of any of these companies who've presented today, get more information, probe them a little bit more on their business models, find out more about what's going on, and you can just address your question to the company. We'll pass the mic, and we will continue this for about 15 minutes. So judges, the floor is yours.
Boy, I'm getting the hot seat here. Let's see. I guess a question for Glue. This is just general Q&A, right? Or just normal?
Anything you want.
Anything, okay. So I am actually really fascinated by this authentication authorization space, and IAM overall, I think it's shifting pretty heavily to open source and obviously newer architectures, newer abstractions as different paradigms kind of change. So how are you guys kind of like accounting for all of the, I think you mentioned ForgeRock and Ping you run into in deals and in the competitive sort of dynamics you're seeing. How are you accounting for building a superior architecture, a superior go-to-market, and a superior team in the midst of all that kind of competition and fast kind of market evolution?
Well, so not to be mean to Ping and ForgeRock, but they're basically big sales organizations now. Ping was bought by private equity, and they're firing a lot of the senior people and replacing them with HPELs, high-performing entry level, and innovation has really come to a crawl at Ping. ForgeRock has never been that fast at innovating, so beating those guys in innovation is not a particularly high watermark for us. Glue has always been very innovative. In terms of building the team, we've had to be somewhat unconventional because of our capital. So we basically say we got to hire the best people wherever they are in the world. So we've, like WordPress or Automatic, we have a very distributed team, people in every continent. With regard to resources, clearly, $150 million is going to help you get to market a lot, and that's definitely where we're struggling. We have been marketing primarily inbound, and so we need to be more proactive about sales and marketing and sort of step up the marketing effort a little bit. But yeah, they do a good job.
My question's for Mark at Trigger Mesh. We talk a lot about technology and capability, and we can all get wrapped around the axle about what's the next wave of innovation. But my question is, if I'm your customer and I'm adopting functions or serverless, however we want to refer to it, what's the problem that I have specifically that's repeatable across a lot of customers for your salespeople that you're going to solve for me that sort of pulls me into this world? Like what makes me take that step, and not just an evolution of architectures, but really a sort of application or business level problem that even walks me down this road?
So at the beginning, the number one thing is just operationalizing this, the developer workflow. So rather than having a highly skilled developer managing, pushing functions into the cloud, it provides that automation for orchestrating those functions to whatever cloud there is. The second thing is having reusable code and triggers already integrated into the platform. So otherwise, they would have to go understand and engineer what the trigger looks like and how they are going to kick off their function, where we're providing you a template to automatically add that reuse. Those triggers and events are reusable across all your functions. The third thing is really giving all of your oversight. So now you have individual developers doing individual functions. It gives oversight to your engineering management, so they can see all of that workflow in all of their clouds.
So for Glue, I found that slide. It says if we could achieve 80% market penetration, we'd have 42,000 organizational customers.
I don't know what year or what year is that slide from?
July 2018.
Oh,
I was just saying that may be something to look at, because when I saw that, it's like, wow, if that's a big
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we could do 80% market share,
Yeah.
I don't know. Also, other weird things in the world could happen. I don't know that I'd want to live in that universe.
Yeah, but it's good that, it does give you a good feel for if you were to do that. You do list that would represent 41,000 organizational customers. So that's probably the context. So thank you for that. For Green Togo, so with the packaging, if the containers, if they're being returned, what's the impact on water resources?
We have an environmental impact calculator that was built for us, and it compares reusables to styrofoam to compostables and recyclables in terms of everything from manufacturing to the use, the washing, the water, the electricity, all the way to the end of its life. And no matter how you shake it out, reusables is a fraction of the resources used then compared to the others in terms of carbon emissions, in terms of landfill volume, and the electricity and heat for washing.
While you got the mic, how do you know how long you can use a reusable in the sense of, health and wellness and everything? How do you measure that?
So the product we're using now in our MVP is an off-the-shelf existing product that has been around for a really long time. It's in a lot of the university dining halls across the country, same container, and the manufacturer and independent studies on the durability and longevity of those boxes show that they can last on average about 1,000 uses. So one box equals 1,000 disposables. We actually think we can do a lot better, so we've got some industrial designers helping us rebrand reuse entirely and create something that's built and designed for reuse systems instead of modeled after disposables. And so that's a thing that's never been done before, and we think we can really improve the longevity and durability even more.
This is for the Brewview guys. Beer is really cheap to make. I mean, I think somebody told me one time it's like a dime a pint to make it for most people at any scale. And if I'm a bar owner and I have a crowded bar, I know I'm making money. And if I have an empty bar, I know I'm not making money. And so where does beer inventory management fall on the priority list for me to spend money on? Like, if I've got X $1,000 to spend a year, am I going to spend it on marketing, getting more people in my bar? Or am I going to spend it on inventory management? Trying to get a sense of the urgency of this problem, and how do you raise the profile of the problem you're solving to the point where it's a must-have rather than a nice-to-have?
Yeah, that's a great question. For bar owners, we have one example. We launched Brewview at an account, and they had some draft taps, and they said, the margins are great on beer. That's why I have it on tap. But he said, I know I have an issue with some of that beer disappearing, and just a few weeks after we put Brewview on, his bottle revenue went up by 40%. Because the patrons, if they couldn't get a free draft, then it's their bar, they hung out there and they purchased a bottle. So I think that also ties into, if you look at the pressure craft beer is putting on these bars to increase their number of tap handles, the cost may be low, but the revenue produced from one craft beer is very high. And having the right selection on tap, having the right, maybe there's 8 different grapefruit beers, having the right one on could be a revenue difference of $500 or $1,000 a month, depending on your bar. Oh, and we have another good story. We had a customer come to us, franchise customer, and their team would lift and shake the kegs on a weekly basis, and they had one of their employees drop a keg on their toe, a full keg. So it was amputated shortly after that.
It got too real all of a sudden. Okay, next question. It looks like our judges are done with their questions. Since we have a few minutes left before we get out, give an opportunity for anyone in the audience to ask some questions. If you would like to ask a question of any of our companies, raise your hand. I will come to you with the microphone, and you get a chance to be a celebrity judge, just like our panel here. So if you have a question, raise your hand. I will come out and see you. You realize this isn't television, and I can see all of you, right? Okay, good. Okay, got a question back there to ask for one or all of our companies who are presenting here today. And your question is?
Questions for Glue. I guess for the, is it to kind of federate the single sign-on within like an intranet, or am I going to try to like basically use my Facebook credentials to log into my Workday? I mean,
All the above.
Okay.
So the Glue server could be used to control access to internal websites. It can be used if a company needs to get access to a SaaS provider. Let's say your company needs to go to Salesforce or Google to get your mail. So we call that outbound identity. And also the Glue server supports what we call inbound identity. So if you authenticate at Facebook and then enter into the site, we might dynamically create an account for you on the fly. So the Glue server, I would say, is very flexible in terms of being able to handle both inbound or outbound identity.
All right, next question for one of our companies is back here.
Hi, this question is for Max from Protopia. I'm curious about how your platform could help economic development through empowering entrepreneurs.
Yeah, so great question. So we actually work right now with an economic development organization in Piedmont, where number one is we're helping multiple organizations collaborate that have fragmented mentor networks. We give them insights into who the best individuals are to share advice. And then the third part is really they want to reach more entrepreneurs on the fringes, people that are Main Street, focusing on inclusivity and diversity. So you've got to lower the barrier to access for those individuals to tap the expertise, because it's intimidating when you launch a business. So taking some of that fear and anxiety off is something where we've seen a lot of traction.
All right, next question's coming here from your left.
This one's for Glue. We've got a softball for you. You mentioned transitioning your business model to an open core. Is that correct?
Yes.
Part of that open core, are you contemplating giving away basically the guts for free as a part of the open source and then offering like a hosted offering similar to an Auth0?
No, actually, we have been really staying out of the SaaS business for a long time because that's dominated by companies that have a huge amount of capital, and we felt like it would be better for us to focus on the on-prem market of companies who are either really paranoid or need the clear IP. Our goal with open source is to keep the Glue server free, but to charge for components that are really only needed by large enterprise customers who should be helping us support to develop a very expensive platform. So things like compliance and audit, really high-end features that only enterprises want, that's what we're going to hold back. But the community, we want to continue to serve open source constituents by keeping the software free and really useful for the vast majority of enterprises or organizations.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, please give a big hand to our 5 presenting companies: Green2Go, Glue, Trigger Mesh, Protopia, and BrewView. Give them a hand.